All right, guys, we are live for the 9 a.m. or 9:30 broadcast here. Live streaming now for everybody new to the channel. If you haven't subscribed, please think about doing so. Click that subscribe button and don't forget to click that bell so you can get notifications of when I post these new videos. And still doing knife reviews, still doing gun reviews. They're going to post here first, and then I have divided each of those reviews into separate channels. The ticker is going to be running down at the bottom. And of course, if you're new to the channel, check out the playlist because we do more than just gun and knife reviews here. There's a whole bunch of interesting topics that I cover here on this channel. But today's topic is all about the decision that I made to move from Hawaii out here to Las Vegas. And it was just a math decision. I watched a show in 2015, 2016 called No Room in Paradise. And they do these specials back home in Hawaii at least once a year to kind of tell everybody, hey, this is what the state of it is. This one just happened to be called No Room in Paradise. And they really broke down the math back then. So the numbers I'm going to give you right now are from 2016. The numbers have gotten titanically worse as far as being able to make a living and surviving and retiring in Hawaii. And it's just a mathematics game. And it's kind of like that movie, The Big Short, when they could foresee the fall of the economic system globally. When I give you these numbers, you're going to be able to see just how impractical it is to survive in places such as Hawaii or anywhere else that has cost of living expenses as back home. But before getting into that, just a quick breeze updates on things that are going on in the news. I just wanted to share with you guys what's going on in the cryptocurrency realm. Bitcoin took a hit yesterday. We can see here that there was a dump, really big red candle here down. Not too sure who dumped, but it put them the price point down, Bitcoin under 19,000. You can see it right here on the right hand side. It just took a severe dip in here. Just crazy. So now is a great time to pick up some Bitcoin. Just DCA dollar cost average in, get what you can get while you can get it before it goes back up. Even if it does go back up, I would consider DCAing all the way up until about maybe 40,000. Again, none of this is financial advice, but if you wanted to get into it, you can. Bitcoin dominance still down. When you see Bitcoin dominance up here at the top here, when it's at 38, 39, 30% is really low, 39% is doable. Anywhere in the 40s is normal, but which means that all of these other altcoins in here are just doing so well. Even with the slide here, downward trend yesterday for Bitcoin, everybody's still doing pretty good. I might pick up some Cardano. 46 cents here. Solana's, but maybe when a Solana hits like $29, I might go in on that a little bit more. But that's what's going on in the cryptocurrency realm. We just hit 1 trillion. Now it's under 950 billion. Well, when it first started trading again, it was just about at 2 trillion. So taking a hit. Stock markets, how are we looking over here? Looks like everything's green. Just green. Dow Jones plus 168. That's good to see. S&P plus 28 or 27.5. NASDAQ up 93.3. So, yeah, doing pretty good here. Man, that American dollar, the Dixie, is just increasing in price, and that's what's causing all these stocks to go down. The big news that I saw yesterday was that Russia is now going to be closing off its Nord Stream 1, and so no more natural gas for Europe. And that's going to hurt a lot of people coming up for winter. That is no good. The other thing is, I saw something about the documents that they seized from Trump's place had evidence of, I guess, our allies' nuclear capabilities, something like that. Keep an eye on that. That's going to be interesting coming in. But getting back to the main topic now, the math behind moving out of Hawaii was a purely mathematical reason. And I wrote some notes down from the video back in 2016, and I've been meaning to do this video for a while. So this video and videos like this I was mentioning, they come up about once a year. And this particular one followed the homeless problem that we have in Hawaii. It's followed, basically people that have drug addiction problems, veterans, Native Hawaiians, people with mental illness, You have people that come in, like they migrate from different areas like Micronesia, um, homeless people that come in from the mainland, uh, elderly senior people that for some reason or another they don't have enough money to make mortgage payments anymore, so they end up homeless on the streets. Children of parents who are also immigrating or migrating from other areas. One third of the children of the homeless population are children, so that was a shocking number there. Or the main category that I was interested in is, never mind about those other categories. It's unfortunate for the people that have mental illness and uh, that are homeless, but the category that I probably would have fallen into had I stayed there, or I mean, no telling, but is the people that lost their jobs because of maybe they got hurt and they couldn't work, and because of that injury, they couldn't afford their mortgage anymore, so they lost it. I mean, they were already on the edge, so close to being on the edge of not having a home, and then when they had that injury or sickness, then yeah, that just put them over the edge. Garrett, how's it going? Yeah, it is getting bad. So, just to kind of give you guys a heads up for where I'm from, back home, I'm from Kalihi, and that was, it's an industrial area. It's right next to the prison there. I think they might be closing that prison down now, from what I understand. But right next to the prison, on Nimitz, right where you're coming out from the airport, there was a massive homeless colony there, and also in Kalihi, if you go further into like where the Chinatown area is, right by the Alawai Park, huge homeless population there too. So I kind of grew up around an area where I saw a lot of homeless. My brother, who passed away, was homeless, and they do the same things. They do the same things to try to survive. They go and try to steal copper to sell it. And that problem is getting worse and worse and worse. And again, the video that I watched kind of chronicled at least one person from each of these categories. And the one that interested me was the middle class person who is trying to go paycheck to paycheck, and then all of a sudden finds themselves with a big bill, whether it's an injury, a sickness, or a car repair, and the bills just keep stacking up. Right, the credit card bills keep packing up, stacking up. You might have student loans, you got your car payments, you got your insurance. If you have multiple kids, that's that middle class person where I was at. And I still have my condo back home, but when I looked at the mortgage I was paying with all those other expenses, because your mortgage is the most expensive thing that you are going to have to pay for outside of your car payments and insurance and children and things like that. And this program that I watched really made me sit down and forecast what the next 30 to 40 years of my life was going to be. I was probably making between $60,000 to $70,000 back then. Even with that type of money coming in, with the mortgage and inflation and the cost of living and all those other things, $70,000, it felt like it was like $30,000. And honestly, people are making $30,000 trying to survive in Hawaii, as well as other places like San Francisco and other places like that. The pay doesn't meet what the cost of living is, and that's the main factor that drove it. Just that one statistic alone, without getting into the rest of the numbers, which just made it even more incredibly scary, is when you look at, and again, this was back in 2016, when you look at $70,000 not being enough to survive in a tiny little condo that was 515 square feet, that was outside of Honolulu area, it was not looking good. And just to give it into perspective, 515 square feet gets you outside of the Honolulu area, right outside of the Waikiki area, kind of more toward the country, like the Mililani, Kapolei area. That mortgage for 515 square foot condo, with the monthly fees added for the HOA, I guess you would call it. They call it HOA over here. Uh, was about $1,800, right? $1,800 for a 515 square foot condo. If I move that same condo into Honolulu, maybe about $35,000 to $4,000. So that's how much a studio would cost, something like that, in the Waikiki area. So if you're wondering what the cost of living is like in Hawaii, that's how crazy it is, and that's not counting like groceries and other things like that. But Let me get into the video that I watched, and you can get a feel for what it's like outside of the numbers that I just explained to you. And again, I thought $70,000 was good, but when you have other types of debt like student loans and especially if you have kids are expensive, and car payments and insurance and all that, it gets really expensive. So $70,000 not enough. And also considering that the average person only makes about 30,000 in Hawaii, so not good. And then, the reason I'm making this particular podcast is this video is not speaking to people in Hawaii that have successful businesses that can afford to live there. This business is not, speaking to people that have we're lucky enough to inherit a house and they're not paying for anything or inherit a large sum of money. You guys haven't made, right? Or even people that are comfortable living in a multi-generational house, right? You have like 3 or 4 generations of living in one house. This is not talking to those people, because if you're comfortable and you have the benefit of having those things, then this isn't going to matter. This is for the people that want to be able to retire, a husband and wife, still trying to buy a house, and are not going to make it. You are going to fall short. And there's a number of different reasons that we'll go through here. So the first thing I just wanted to cover that the video covered, and again, I'm always going to go back to this number because even in 16, the first guy that they followed was a homeless guy, and he had mental illness, he had diabetes, and he was on the street. He was in a wheelchair. He had to cut off his legs. And, when you have diabetes, that happens. And he couldn't keep himself clean. He kept having to, he couldn't go to the restroom. He was like literally pooping on himself, peeing on himself. And at least once a week, he would call the ambulance because he figured out that he could go to the hospital and get a shower and have a warm meal. Now, the math for this, back in 2016, an ambulance call was $1,000. To get admitted to the emergency room was $1,000. So every time that he called for an ambulance, it was a $2,000 visit for a homeless person back then. He used to call them, they were saying at least once a week. All right. So per month, that's $8,000. That's $8,000 to take care of one homeless person. Back then, the homeless population, I don't have the exact number on there, but it was pretty big. And not all of them are going to call the ambulance a lot, but a lot of them do. So if you're wondering what the cost to take care of an individual with no insurance, it back then in 2016, it was about $2,000 for an ambulance trip back there. And a lot of them understand that if you flag down an ambulance and you say that you're sick, they have to look at you, and then most of the time they will take you into the ER. So I would say with inflation, that number probably is now an ambulance ride probably costs what, 1,500, 1,800, and to get into the ER another $1,500 to $1,800. To get in the ER. So you figure if there's no insurance, that number is going to keep stacking over the lifetime. That'll be incredibly expensive. But there's a lot of people that are out there that take advantage of the that type of. And I think back home we might have only 2 ambulance companies back then, like the state, the Hoist, City and County, and then like maybe a few private ones. But that's the math on that. Now the big one here is, again, the mental illness, the people that are homeless for various reasons, people that just get out of jail and other things like that. We're going to focus on the middle class back here because they had a developer on that show that just basically said, hey, it's very unfortunate that these other people are homeless. It's a big deal. But what about the middle class people that are going to start running into issues because they can't save enough money to buy a house, right? And that's key, because if you're in your 40s and you're purchasing your first house and you do a 30-year mortgage, you're going to be working into your 70s to possibly have that home paid off. So guys, if you're out there in any state, it doesn't have to be Hawaii. If you don't own a home in your 30s, you're going to be screwed by the time you're going to retire. So that's one of those things. That's one of those triggers that when I forecasted where I was going to be, I knew that if I stayed in Hawaii, I wasn't going to be able to save up enough money to retire. So if you're in that realm right now, if you're getting into your 40s and your late 40s and you don't own a home in Hawaii and you're still paying rent, you got to make the change. You got to do something to get out of that situation, because back in 2016, and this is looking to when you get older, and let's say you want to get into a senior home, that home is going to cost you at least $150,000 to $180,000 a year. Okay. And the number back in 2016 was you needed $135,000 to get into a senior home, like assisted living or something like that. So if you don't have that saved up, guess where you're going to end up? Right? Like I was saying, this show covered a lot of seniors and elderly people that couldn't afford to stay in senior care. So that's, again, that's just a number, and that number is getting worse every single year that goes by. Every single year. If you don't have enough money to take care of yourself when you get older, you're going to end up on the streets. And I know some people are going to say, "Oh, my children will take care of me." Will you? Will they? Because you see a lot of bad things, a lot of news like this where kids refuse to take care of their parents because maybe they're in different places. And ideally, you want to have kids that are going to take care of you, but that just might not be what's going to happen. So you want to make sure that you can take care of yourself. And if you don't have the funds set aside to take care of yourself, especially when you think about widowers, their best friend in life has now passed on, their kids don't want to take care of them, and they're left alone in whatever state that they're in, and they're going to end up homeless because the other half of this. Yeah, the math is adding up, right? It's just people in Hawaii don't make enough money to support themselves, save, living paycheck to paycheck. That's the mathematical portion of it. The other half of it is just the pure housing that's available. There's not enough homes being made in Hawaii to house everybody. There's not enough being made. All right, I think the number that I got here is oh, that's the retirement number. I'm not too sure. Well, let me go back to the mathematical portion first. So if you figure the average person is only making about 30,000 a year, right? 30,000 a year, maybe 40,000 a year. Back then, it cost about $400,000 to build a home. If you look at that salary, that gap between what people are making and what it costs to build a home is massive. It's massive. It's such a massive difference in pricing between how much someone makes and how much it costs to build a home that builders aren't making homes. So not only are people not making enough, but the availability for affordable housing and housing in general is not going to be there. So if you figure back in 2016, if the goal was to make 65,000 units over 10 years. So back then was 2016. 10 years would be 2026. If the goal was to make 65,000 units available, and out of those, 21,000 were contracted to have to be affordable housing, they only made 4,500. That was what they were forecasting. That's a difference of 16 half, right? So what 16,500 is the shortage of homes that were not going to be available to people. So not only do people not make enough money, but there's not going to be enough money to put anyone or everyone. So with just those two, statistics in my mind, I knew that I had to get out of here and move Hawaii and move somewhere where at least you could start saving up. And I'm going to tell you right now that I'm in a way better place. I'm so much less stressful now that I'm here. But you could have choose to move anywhere. It doesn't have to be Nevada. It could have been Arizona. It could have been, Texas. Everybody's moving to Texas. Just somewhere where the cost of living is lower, so that you can afford to retire. And you see it on shows all the time about people talking about retirement, and it wasn't a thing where it was attainable, but now it is attainable now that I'm out here. So again, just to recap what the situation in Hawaii is, and these again are numbers from so far back. It's people don't make enough money, and this is everywhere, right? People just don't make enough money to save, to retire, number one, and number two, to buy a home. And again, even if you are able to afford a home and you do it in your 50s, you're going to be paying for that through your 80s. And is that a retirement? Social Security is not going to be there for you. You have to have that additional fundage to be comfortable later on in your life. So those are just some of the statistics that I came up with and why I decided to move. It's just math. It's just math. And the numbers they're undeniable. So if you're in Hawaii, guys, right now, and like I said, the first trigger for you is just know that there's not enough homes. If you don't own a home already, there's not enough homes to house everybody. There's going to be a shortage. It's already there. It's going to get increasingly deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you figure, the other number I wanted to bring up is back then, 1 in 3 people in Hawaii were going to be over 60. Okay. And I don't know what percentage of that is to a point where they can't afford to have a house. All of these people that are over 60 and trying to retire are going to get to a point where they can't either afford their rent or they can't afford to buy a home. And even if at the age of 60, you can afford to buy a home, guess what? You're probably going to die before you can pay it off. The object here is to have your home paid off so that you can retire and enjoy the rest of your life. But you're not going to be able to do that in Hawaii. So again, the name of that show was called No Room in Paradise. But honestly, if you just look up homelessness in Hawaii or No Room in Paradise, Hawaii does a really good job of at least posting and producing one of these a year. But this is the one that really made me sit down and have a good look at the numbers as to why you cannot stay in Hawaii. And if the internet is fuzzy, because I can see that my signal up here is going bad, I'm going to do another posting, another broadcast, podcast at 1 o'clock. So again, 9 a.m., 1 a.m. I'll try to redo it when there's less traffic, and it'll give me some time to kind of listen to this podcast and look to see what other numbers are out there. And maybe I'll go over some of the benefits of coming out here to Las Vegas. Maybe I'll do a separate podcast for that. But yeah, those are the numbers, guys. People not making enough money to either own your own home, and then when you finally do, you're too old. You're going to be paying through that, and then you're not going to be able to enjoy your retirement. And you really don't want to rely on your kids to take care of you. You want to be self-sufficient, when you get into your golden years. Well, all right, guys, thanks for watching. Pretty interesting news day again. Bitcoin still under 19,000. More interesting things found in Donald Trump's home. That guy is so crazy. But I'll see you guys at 1 a.m. if you guys feel like tuning into the broadcast. Thank you for watching, and thank you to Garrett for posting the comments in there. Have a good day, guys.